I'm measuring and adjusting geometry on this car. So here's a small tip when you do the geometry. Well, I'm doing this at home. I'll talk about it in a moment. But the subject is really about releasing this knot. So this is between the tie rods and the external and internal one. So this knot sometimes is really stuck, especially if the geometry was never done or was done several times ago. And it's really hard to undo this knot. So also the knot has usually a larger size, 22 millimeters or more, 21 sometimes. Here's a trick I used. I just place, you can get I recommend you get a wrench, a full wrench from your hardware store, but you can also use this adjustable wrench. And then I will get the pry bar. This one is from the hydraulic jack, and you just use the bottom suspension. Is going to be really a suspension part. By the way, watch out because sometimes there are fuel lines, power steering lines some places. Just insert it and take leverage at some, it will depend on the car. This is a Hyundai, but every car is different. And just push against the wrench or the what you have there. And also remember which way it's untightening, because on each wheel is different, so you don't tighten it. You want to release that knot, and then just try to pry up or pry the right way. I'm not sure if I can do it this one hand. Yeah. Anyhow, I need to force a little bit more with two hands, but this is the trick. Now, one thing, obviously sometimes it's going to be rusted and so stuck. And also, unfortunately, I really think it's unfortunate, some mechanics really think this nut is like a suspension nut or like a engine mount nut. Okay, so I got it, it's loose now. So I was saying that's what mechanics do. They really tighten this like crazy because they think it's steering. So, but the fact is that you don't have to force like a well nug on it. It's really my way of thinking. This is just right now, so it's untightened, so let's just tighten it. Remember the way it goes. I really like it to tighten it by hand, just enough, so the next time when I'll need to work on it, I'm going to be able to remove it, to loosen it without too much trouble. That's my point of judgment. So let's just say I'm forcing a little bit on downwards, and that would be for me, because it actually is, there's nothing like it's getting impacts or something strong, and to me is not a knot that should be tightening like crazy. It's good to tighten it with some force, but do not exaggerate on it. That's one thing. The other thing is that sometimes it happens that you won't be able to remove it from there. Of course, you can bring the car to a garage to try to heat it up and stuff, but I had a car in the past and no garage was able to remove it, to loosen the nut, and also they were cheating on me. That's why I started to do my own geometry since like 15 years ago, and always my welds are really uniformly worn, so there's no problem with the geometry. I can do it, and you can do it several times a year, especially if you have potholes in a city like I do. But I was saying that mine on a previous car like 15 years ago, mine was so stuck, the garages were saying yes, we did the geometry, but actually they didn't do anything. So in the end I had to replace both tie rods, and that solved the problem because it was really stuck, couldn't do it. So this is it, that's my trick. It works if you're not too stuck. And now, like I said, I'm checking my geometry. I'm going to adjust the tie rod. Basically we just loosen that nut, and then we are going to put another wrench on this inner tie rod. It has, like you will see, hexagon on it, and then either tighten it or loosen it and then tighten back the knot. And this adjustment will cause the welds to change the toe in or toe out. Basically the measure of the toe in, what I do, and you can see other people doing this, and obviously it will look really like a too rough approach. It will look really inaccurate to many people, but actually it works if you do it carefully, if you take a time, it really works. So what I do is just I attach, maybe I use a 10 millimeter bolt, small one. I get it into the threads, and then I will go, this is the back of the welds, I will go and measure in some place. I know which place it is, so I get it. I get my measure, and I want it. I will do the same in the front of the well, on the other side of the well, and I will compare the two measures. And I really want them to be to 1 or 2 millimeter close, and that will be my adjustment. And like I said, 10-15 years ago, I started this on all my cars. I never had worn tires on the outside. On either side, always it was really uniformly worn. So you can do it, not just save money, but also at the same time to go to the garage, especially if you are in a place with really poor roads like I do in Canada here. So this is my adjustment. This is how I measure the geometry, and then I will adjust the tie rod. I will move it by, maybe, depends, tighten or untighten, by 15-30 degrees, not much more than that. And then I will measure again. Also, between the measures of the distances here, you really need to roll the car back and forth a few times inside the garage. You don't need to drive it really. And then there is another thing. Maybe I'll link you a video where I explain this, how you do this adjustment on each side, on which side, or maybe on both sides. And also, really important, how to adjust also the steering wheel position, because when you change the tie rods, the steering wheel may be turned to one side or to the other side as you drive straight on the highway, for example. So you really need to take that in consideration, and to, when you finish adjusting the geometry, to have the steering wheel straight when you go straight on the road. And also, it shouldn't be feeling like it's pulling to one side. And by the way, when you go to garage and they do the geometry, the cheap garages, which are not very professional, they will do it maybe on the wells, but you will notice the steering wheel, it's turned to one side. They didn't do the job completely and correctly. And also, finally, when you hit a pothole, one sign that your geometry went off is, you'll notice the steering wheel, it's turned to very, very slightly, more or less, but could be really slightly to one side or to the other side. That means you are 100% for sure your geometry is off, and you need to check it, get it checked and correct. This is it. Thanks for your time. A little bit long video, but yeah, I just wanted to start to show with a note, and then I extended my discussion to other subjects. Thanks.